All right, yeah, we back with another one. Let me get my music turned down here one time. Yeah, and let's get that off. Let's put the banner up one time. All right, bam. And then let's hide that. All right, yeah, so we good. What's happening? Dog food TV, Fanatical L's, you know how it goes. We back with another installment, if you will, on a Saturday. Nice day where I'm at, so I'm gonna try to keep this real brief. We're gonna try to keep this around 20 minutes. Um, we're gonna do pre-draft uh, AFC North grades, right? And again, a lot can happen between now and week one, so a lot of this is not really speculative, but just if the season were to start today, which we know it's not, but we're gonna do a little commentary on that, and then we're only gonna do the offense for the AFC North today. All four teams. We'll look at the defense and another one, and then after the draft, and I guess as free agency kind of starts to settle in, maybe we'll do another one in a couple of months and see if any of these grades have changed. Again, shout out to the Fanatical L's, everybody under the umbrella, all of the fantastic podcast, great, tremendous content. So be sure to keep checking us out. So let me get my screen pulled up here. All right. So we're gonna start with the Browns, and so you'll see here, and I use Spot Rack as a source just as far as like who's on the team. So some of this, depending on where you watch when you're watching it, may change or may have changed. So if we start with the QBs, I'm going to give it a B with an upside of an A. Obviously, health is a big component. I do believe that a healthy Watson is going to, or has the opportunity or the potential to pay dividends, if you will. Um, the more I've thought about it, I kind of understand why they parted ways with Flacco. Again, he did his thing, but Winston, Huntley, DTR, depending on how they decide to keep those quarterbacks. As far as the depth chart is concerned, I think that's a solid. I think that's a solid group that you can go into the season with. We go to the RBs. You already know, even with Chubb coming off of an injury, that's still an A. I saw a podcast with Roquan Smith. They asked him who was the toughest to tackle. He said Chubb. And so with that being said, even coming off of an injury, again, a lot of people are using the Adrian Peterson thing as comparison. But if I remember correctly, Adrian Peterson got injured later in the season when he came back and rushed for them 2,000 yards. It was like November or December when he got hurt. Chubb got hurt week 2. So to me, that's plenty of time to rest, let the leg heal, and then obviously do the rehab. I mean, you squatting 600 pounds. I mean, if in the event he's able to get back to squatting 600 pounds, I don't know if you're going to have to worry about the knee not, being him not having confidence in the knee when he goes to cut. And even when I watch some of the highlights, his game, he's not really predicated on them hard, shifty cuts like some of these other backs are. He's like one move and go. And definitely a power. Also a power back, right? So let's take it to the wide receivers. It's been a lot of commentary about the Judy trade. A lot of people feel like the Browns overpaid. But I remember when Amari Cooper was with the Raiders, I had him on my fantasy team, and he really wasn't putting up big numbers like that. And then I dropped him, right? Didn't even trade him. I dropped him. He gets traded to Dallas in the middle of the season, and he starts putting in major work. Hopefully, this Jerry Judy trade, the change of scenery, will yield the same results as far as production is concerned. Very eager to see what type of chemistry he develops with Watson. But if that's at least I think the top 3 that you got right there, Cooper, Judy, Moore, I think that's your 1, 2, and 3. I don't really know how they're gonna finish it out down the depth chart, but I think that has the potential to be a wide receiver room. So gave it B plus with a upside. Again, Cooper, you know, that nothing to really talk about there. But Judy and Moore are definitely the X factors in their role. Go to the tight ends, gave that a B plus, and that's largely because of Njoku coming on at the end of the season. I mean, y'all watch the games. Nothing to really, talk about there. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe added another tight end in the draft if there's a best available scenario there. But I think B plus is a solid grade for them, obviously with the upside of an A. And it'll probably be an A if Njoku balls out again. I think one more season you can go ahead and probably bump that up to an A. And then obviously the offensive line group, even with the litany of injuries, that was a top 3 or top 5 offensive line. So as it stands, again, every season is different. But as it stands, the Browns going into the next season with nice on paper, right? They don't play the games on paper, but I think they're in good position even getting into the draft. We ain't even looked at the defense. So I think we about to go to the next. Let's go to the next slide here. All right, and so you got the Ravens. Again, quarterbacks. That's an A plus. Nothing to even really talk about. That's an A plus. Nothing to really, MVP. He's been consistent. A lot of people would say, well, his weapons has kind of been, not elite weapons, if you will, and he still finds a way to get it done. You feel me? So A plus there. And then if you go with the running backs, the Derrick Henry signing does concern me a little bit because I actually live down here in Nashville, so I see a lot of the Titans games, and I don't think the Titans used him. I don't think they utilized him enough. Well, not enough because they did run him into the ground, but I'm saying in key components because there were so many times on third down he's not on the field, and it's like what are you? Why would you? It doesn't make any sense. It's a head scratcher. And, maybe that'll be the situation in Baltimore, depending on down and distance with the Mitchell kid, because I know he's a burner and Hill. So it'll be interesting to see how they spell Henry or how many carries a game he's going to get. I'd be surprised if he's over 300 carries. That 220 is probably where he's going to be, 220 to 240, but that's kind of why it concerns me because a fresh Henry, especially around the goal line, is going to be a problem. It's definitely going to be a problem, but we'll come back to that when we get to the offensive line piece. So wide receivers, give that a B. They lost Beckham, and you probably could have went B minus there. They're probably going to address that again at some point in the draft or in free agency. But not terrible, but not elite. I would say of their number one, whether it's Bateman or Flowers, I don't think either of them is better than Amari Cooper, Pickens out of Pittsburgh, or Jamar Chase, obviously, out of Cincinnati. So, again, B, I don't really know if there's upside for an A right now as it stands, but went with a B there. Tight ends, obviously, that's an A, if not an A plus. They're pretty much set there. They got 2 monsters in Andrews and Likely. So nothing to really talk about there. That's definitely the strength. Now, when you get into the offensive line is kind of their Achilles heel, or could be their Achilles heel on offense. When you're talking about matchups, in football, and you're talking about the defense, the offense, the chess move or the chess game that it is, that bodes well for the Cleveland Browns if the Ravens offensive line um, is kind of like they were last year. Now again, they were number one seed, so I'm not saying that they was trash. I'm not saying that. But they weren't the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. So if you're gonna try to plan for that weakness and try to do your Trojan horse thing, right, and penetrate the Ravens offense, that's probably where you're gonna do it. Mess up their timing, different things like that. And if Derrick Henry doesn't have running lanes to run through, and you're forcing them into longer down and distance scenarios, you can kind of neutralize Jackson and Henry to some extent. But it'll be interesting to see um, how that plays out. They lost in I don't know if I call it heartbreaking fashion, but they just number one seed, they made dumb plays, and that's what cost them the game. And it'll be interesting to see if they bounce back from that. But as we talked about in the previous video, the AFC North is going to be a straight up, like, bar fight, bloodbath, whatever you want to call it. So it'll be interesting to see if their offensive line, how that translates to next season, if they're able to win the division again or even come close. All right, take it to the Bengals here on the next slide. Again, you got Burrow and Browning, A plus. When Burrow got hurt, Browning pretty much came in and did his thing. Obviously goes without saying with Joe Burrow. So that's an A plus. So what we have, we had the Browns at a B. I think it was B, not a B plus. So you had the Browns at a B, and then you got the Ravens and Bengals at A plus in the quarterback space. Now the running backs, they let Mixon go, which was a surprise there. So you got Zach Moss, and let's look at these other names real quick. Zach Moss, where we at? Zach Moss, Travion Williams, Chris Evans, and Chase Brown. So that's probably, of the AFC North, probably the weaker running back room of the conference. But again, with Joe Burrow, that can kind of be nullified. Be interesting to see if they go running back in the draft, and to see what they do in free agency. Again, there's still a lot of time between now and week one, but as it stands right now, running back room is going to be a C. Don't really know if there's much upside there. Wide receivers, nothing to really talk about. A, if not an A plus, probably not an A plus because they lost Boyd, and there's chatter that they're going to have to trade Higgins because he's not going to want to play on the tag. If they trade Higgins, just with Chase, it's probably still an A. At worst, it's B plus. At worst. So that'll be interesting to see. Be interesting to see if they try to kind of do a little bit of what the Titans did, where they flipped AJ Brown for a first round pick, even though I don't think Higgins would go for a first round pick, but flip him and then try to draft his replacement. So it'll be interesting to see if that's what they do. But as it stands on paper, if it's Chase and Higgins going into 2024, that's an A in that group there. Tight ends. They picked up Mike Gesicki, I believe. They just signed him. Drew Sample, Tanner Hudson are the tight ends. That's going to be that's good for a C minus, and I believe that is I think in that category there, based on these rankings, that's probably the weakest tight end room in the division there. But again, with Joe Burrow, he can kind of correct some of that. Now, offensive line, they've made they pay some attention to their offensive line because I think they understand that they're going to have to shore that up. Burrow, him taking hits And even though his injury this past year was a non-contact injury, you definitely want to make sure that he's not under a lot of duress. Um, and when you think about what are they, 1-5 or 2 and whatever against the Browns in the last couple 4 or 5 years, a lot of that probably has to do with the offensive line, um, and how the Browns' strength has predominantly been the defensive line for sure, being able to get to the quarterback, things like that. So the Bengals kind of had the same injury woes that the Browns did. So fully healthy though at 100%. Again, that's what's going to make this division so tough, because if everybody stays healthy, who's the favorite? If you take your homerism out of it, who's really the favorite? You feel me? You really can't say it, because this is probably the first time since the early '90s or the late '80s that we know, at least in this millennia for the most part, that all four teams have pretty much been right there. You know, so it's gonna be very fun to watch. It's gonna be very interesting to watch, and I think the Chiefs have to play the AFC North this year. So every team in the AFC North is going to get an opportunity to go at the Chiefs and kind of use that as a litmus test to see where they are, because 9 times out of 10, that's who you're gonna have to go through. They're pretty much you know, they picked up where the Patriots left off. And then finally, we're gonna take a look at the Steelers. Obviously, y'all know about the two signings, the Wilson and Fields. Again, that still comes in at a C plus, primarily because Wilson appears to be on a downward trajectory, and Fields is kind of unproven, and it's going into obviously a new team, new system. Now, I'll say that both of these quarterbacks, if anybody can get the most out of them, it's going to be Mike Tomlin, no doubt about it. So, but as it stands right now, that they come in at a C plus with upside, and there's enough upside there where they could get to a B plus or A. It just depends on, I guess, the scheme and how well they play. But yeah, we'll see, because both of those quarterbacks, the AFC North is a little bit different. I mean, Fields probably gets a taste of it, having been in the NFC North, but we'll see how they're able to adjust, and if the Steelers make any other um, additions to that room, whether it's the draft or free agency. Running back, obviously, you got Najee Harris and Warren, so that's B, if not a B plus, but probably solid right there at B. Because even if you take that into account, they're probably still the third best running back room when you're talking about the Browns and the Ravens. And then obviously the Bengals lost Mixon, so they're probably right there at 3. And wide receiver, Pickens is pretty much the standout right now, because they traded, who was it? Deontay. The name escapes me right now, but y'all know who I'm talking about. So as it stands right now, that comes in at as a solid B. If they had the other receiver, this probably would have been a B plus, maybe an A minus, something like that. But it'll be interesting to see if these quarterbacks can get Pickens the ball, because we know that there was some tension. At least it appeared to be tension. I don't know, but that's how it looked when he wasn't getting his touches, wasn't getting his targets. So we'll see how that plays out. Again, their tight ends, they got solid tight ends, Freiermuth and Washington. I'm surprised that they don't really get him more involved in the pass game, talking about Washington. But we'll see. We'll see what they do going into 24. And then their offensive line, I believe, last year was the worst in the division. And so they come in at a C minus, probably a C. We'll see what type of additions or what they decide to do in the draft or free agency, things like that. So it's going to be. This is why it's such a tough time of the year. You feel me? Because I don't even watch basketball no more. So really, the only thing I'll be waiting on is football. So everybody's going to be speculating for the next, what is this, March? So yeah, the next 6 months. the next 6 months, everybody's going to be speculating, and these grades may. I don't imagine that they're going to change that much, though. If I'm being honest with you, um, I think for the most part, once the season comes in, aside from maybe a blockbuster trade here or there, right, or maybe later in the season, you see who hit on a draft pick, whether it's regardless of what round it is, So, and honestly, I can't. I'm not even going to say who's the favorite to win the division. I think the odds makers got it going. Um, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and then no, Baltimore. Yeah, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and then Pittsburgh. But what does that even mean? And as we saw last year, injuries happen. Depth is important. So the only thing you can really do is try to put together the best 53-man roster. And then not only that, you got to execute. And not only that, if you remember all your P's, your preparation, your poise, you got to perform when it matters the most. Because all three phases of the game, even if you count coaching, they got out-coached, outplayed, out everything when they played against the Texans. So, playoff berth, okay, yeah, that's cool. But if you want to, continue to be a destination where free agents want to come, if you want to, continue to kind of change the narrative or change the perception of the organization, you gotta take a major step. And I think they've loaded up the roster to be able to do that. So we got to wait 6 months to even get to week 1, see how it go. But yeah, that'll do it. Where we at on time? I guess we right around 20 minutes. So hope y'all are enjoying your weekend, all of that. And this was Dog Food. And again, shout out to the Fanatical Elves. You can catch us, during the week, multiple great shows to check out. So, please keep your timeline notifications on. Keep that notification game strong. And we'll catch y'all on the next one.